When you hear about a big corruption case, the whole legal process can feel like a total black box, right? Super complicated. But what if we could actually trace the journey of a case, from the very first allegation all the way to the final verdict? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to decode the anatomy of India's main anti-corruption law, the Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll figure out what the law actually considers to be corruption. Then we'll see who gets held responsible, how an investigation even gets started, what the path to a trial looks like, and finally, what happens when someone is found guilty. We are literally covering the entire life cycle of a case.
So, first things first, where does any case even begin? It all starts with defining the crime itself. Before you can go after corruption, you have to have really clear ground rules for what legally is a corrupt act. So that's our first stop.
So what does legally count as corruption? It's not just about, passing cash under the table. The law is really built around two huge ideas that define the whole thing. This concept of undue advantage and a surprisingly broad definition of who's considered a public servant. Okay, at the absolute heart of this law is one core idea: undue advantage. What does that mean? It's any kind of gratification that's not part of an official's legal salary. And the law is really clear that gratification isn't just about money. It can be literally anything of value. This broad definition is the foundation of pretty much every bribery case.
So who does this law actually apply to? The term public servant casts a way wider net than you might think. It's not just about government bureaucrats. We're talking about employees at all levels, judges, officials at government-owned companies, even people who work at universities. Basically, it's anyone who performs a public duty for the community.
Okay, so we've got the crime defined. Now let's look at the players involved. Who does the law actually hold accountable when a bribe is exchanged? As you're about to see, it's definitely not a one-sided thing. Now this is absolutely crucial. The law sees corruption as a two-way street. It holds both sides accountable. So on one side, you've got the public servant, the bribe taker, who's looking for that undue advantage. But on the other side, you have the bribe giver, whether it's a person or a company. The law sees both of these as distinct, serious offenses. And to make this crystal clear, here's a simple, really powerful example pulled right out of the act itself. An official asks for money just to do his job and process a routine application. Bam, he's guilty. It's a textbook case. And notice the most important detail. The money doesn't even have to change hands. Just the act of asking for a bribe is a crime. And this accountability doesn't stop with individuals. The law also goes after companies. So if an employee or an agent offers a bribe to get some business, the whole organization can be prosecuted and fined. The only defense is if the company can prove it already had really strong anti-bribery rules in place. All right, so an allegation has been made. How does the system actually react? This next phase is so important. Let's look at the nuts and bolts of how an official investigation actually gets off the ground. It's not as simple as just starting an investigation. There's a really critical safeguard here to stop officials from being harassed by fake claims. Before the police can even start looking into a public servant's official decisions, they have to get previous approval from the government. The only real exception is if someone is caught red-handed, like physically accepting a bribe. In that situation, an arrest can be made right then and there. And get this, the law is also incredibly specific about who is even allowed to run these investigations. Not just any police officer can take on a corruption case. Depending on where it is, the investigation has to be handled by a senior officer, at least an inspector in Delhi, an assistant commissioner in big metro areas, or a deputy superintendent of police everywhere else. This is to make sure these really sensitive cases are led by people with experience. Okay, so the investigation is done and the authorities think they have a solid case, but they can't just waltz into a courtroom. There's another set of really important hurdles they have to clear before a trial can even think about starting. This is another huge filter in the process. Even with all the evidence in the world, a court can't legally kick off a trial without a formal sanction for prosecution. And this approval has to come from the exact government authority that has the power to fire that public servant. It's a powerful check meant to protect officials from malicious lawsuits, but, it's also one of the most debated parts of the law because critics say it can be used to protect political allies. But this whole safeguard thing isn't supposed to be a roadblock that lasts forever. The law actually puts a clock on it. The government authority has to make a decision on this sanction within 3 months. They can get 1 more month if they need to consult with lawyers, but that's it. This timeline is there to stop cases from getting buried in bureaucracy forever. Now, if that sanction is granted, the case doesn't go to just any old court. It goes to a special court, which is run by a special judge. These are experienced judges with at least the rank of an assistant sessions judge, and the law is explicit that these trials should happen day to day with the goal of wrapping everything up within 2 years, all to make sure justice isn't delayed.
So we followed the case all the way to a verdict. The trial is over, and the public servant has been found guilty. So what happens now? Let's look at the final reckoning, the punishments laid out in the law. The penalties here are really severe, with serious prison time. Just taking a bribe will get you 3 to 7 years. For something broader, like criminal misconduct, which could include having a bunch of unexplained wealth, the minimum is 4 years, and it can go up to 10. And the law's even tougher on repeat offenders. They get a minimum of 5 years in prison.
But it's not just about losing your freedom, it's also about losing the loot. The law is designed to make sure that crime literally does not pay. So along with prison time, the court has the power to order the forfeiture of any property or assets that were bought with corrupt money. The whole point is to strip away all the ill-gotten gains.
So there you have it, the anatomy of an anti-corruption case in India, from the legal definition all the way to the final judgment. The law gives us this detailed, powerful framework with checks and balances at every single stage. But, having a strong legal skeleton is one thing. The real question this all leaves us with is, what does it take to actually use that framework effectively and truly win the fight against corruption?